The wind on planet Aral was a gentle, singing breeze. It moved through the silver-tipped grass like a song from a memory. The skies were lavender, the clouds slow moving and heavy with crystal light. It was a quiet world, untouched by war, conflict, or the cruel politics of the galaxy. So when the pale, broken body of a human fell from the sky and crash-landed in the fields near the outer village of Narutel, it was the first time the people of Aral had ever seen blood. The being was barely alive. Burn marks covered half his face, other side cut and bruised beyond recognition. His breathing was shallow, ribs broken, skin cracked and burned. Under strange blackened armor, his hand still clutched a melted data pad as if it mattered more than his own survival. They called the elders, as was their custom. No one touched him, not out of fear but out of respect. He was not like them. His body was too dense, too heavy. The blood that seeped from his chest was darker, thicker. Alien. Elder Marrow, who had once lived through the planetary winter of '94, Bell studied him closely and said, "He is not like the others we've seen in the archives. This one was made for battle." The people of Narul had no weapons. Their world had no predators. They had never needed shields, barriers, or armies. They knew the stars were full of dangerous creatures of politics and empires, but those things never came here until now. They carried the human into the temple and worked for days to keep him alive. Their healers didn't know what Earth was or what humans could endure, but they tried, and against the odds the human woke. He opened his eyes to soft light and strange voices. His throat was dry. His body felt like it had been dropped into fire and ice at once. But when he saw the face above him, soft with golden eyes and silver markings, he didn't flinch. He whispered one word, "Why?" The being blinked. "Because you fell." He tried to sit up but failed. Pain laced through him like fire. "No one helps humans," he murmured. "Not anymore." "You are wrong," said the healer gently. "We do." The human's name was never fully understood. He couldn't speak much at first, and their translators struggled with his tongue. They called him Ash, because that was the state he arrived in, burned, crumbling, but still carrying the spark of something that refused to die. Ash recovered slowly, but the questions in his eyes never left. He didn't understand why these people, these peaceful, fragile creatures, had helped him. "I was a soldier," he told Mar once. "You don't help people like me. You are hurt." Mio replied, "And kindness is not reserved for the harmless." Ash grew stronger with each passing moon. He walked with a limp, and his body bore the scars of a war they couldn't imagine. But he smiled more now. He taught the children how to make fire without sunlight. He showed the healers how to use pressure and heat to close wounds. He even carved a replica of his ship's insignia and gave it to the temple as thanks. And still he asked why. One night under a violet moon, Elder Marrow answered him, "We do not help to be repaid. We help because it is right." Ash was quiet for a long time, then softly, almost to himself, he said, "They'll come." "Who will?" He turned his eyes to the stars. "My people. If they know what you did, they'll come." There was no threat in his voice, only a promise. The days turned into weeks, and though Ash had healed physically, something inside him still stayed broken. It wasn't his bones. It wasn't the burned skin that now bore the textured marks of alien medicine. It was his silence. He helped when asked. He smiled when smiled. He even laughed with the children of Narwhal when they tried to braid wild flowers into his short, coarse hair. But when night fell, when the stars appeared, and the winds went still, he stood alone on the cliff that overlooked the far hills, watching, waiting. The people of Errol learned not to ask about it. They sensed the grief in him. Like a scent in the air, it wasn't there. Way to push, but Elder Marrow knew grief. When he saw it, one evening the elder approached Ash by the cliff. The human stood shirtless, old scars and fresh ones lacing his back like a war map. Wind carried the chill, but Ash never seemed to mind. Marrow stood beside him, quiet for a while. Then gently, "You watch the sky like it owes you something." Ash's eyes didn't leave the stars. "It does." "What happened, Ash? What brought you here like that?" The human didn't speak. Right away, his jaw worked, his breath slowed. "I was part of a recon team," he said. "Finally, our fleet was doing a sweep of the outer sectors. We'd picked up a distress signal. Mining vessel was ambushed by raiders. They were slavers, non-human types, nasty ones." Marrow listened, hands folded in front of him. "We landed on the outer rim moon. Tried to negotiate. Didn't work, so we fought." Ash paused. "My ship got hit bad, engines fried. I blacked out in orbit. When I came to, I was alone, floating." He turned to Marrow. Voice flat. "I ejected. Burned through the atmosphere. Landed here. Thought I'd die. Honestly, I was ready for it." Me studied him. "And now?" Ash looked away. "Now I don't know." There was a long silence. The breeze moved through the grass like breath. "I don't belong here," Ash said. "Eventually, your people are kind, gentle. I don't even know why you saved me. Humanity doesn't have friends out here. We're not loved." Meow's voice was soft. "Love is not always earned before it is given." Ash shook his head, frustrated. "But why risk it? What if I brought trouble with me? What if those slavers come here? You have no defense, no weapons. You're farmers, artists. You can't fight. We chose long ago not to live in fear. Fear eats the soul." "That's easy to say until someone lands with guns and a grudge," Ash said bitterly. Marrow didn't argue. He simply looked up at the stars. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "you were not sent here to be saved, but to protect." Ash's brow furrowed. Marrow turned and walked away, leaving that thought behind like a seed. By the next week, Ash had begun building. It started small, marking out a training field near the edge of the forest. Then came the posts, the rope swings, the heavy stones for resistance. Training, the villagers watched in quiet curiosity as he created a space of sweat and strength, like a soldier trying to remember who he once was. He trained alone at first, pull-ups on tree limbs, rolls across uneven dirt, mock fights with shadow opponents. But soon a few of the younger villagers came to watch. Then they asked questions. Then they joined in. Ash was patient but firm. "Fighting isn't fun," he told them. "It's survival. Learn to survive first, then maybe you won't have to fight." His reputation began to shift from injured outsider to something else, something stronger. The whispers started. Protector, teacher, the sky-blooded warrior. He didn't like it. Titles never meant anything, not in war, but he didn't stop them either. One night he was in the temple studying one of the older star Maps, a beautiful painting on thick crystal showing trade routes and star lanes long forgotten when he heard the voice, not a villager, not Errol at all. A message, it was faint, buried under layers of static, but Ash's ears caught it instantly. His body tensed. He rushed to the old comm beacon outside the temple, patched through the crystals, and rerouted energy from the temple's solar core. Then the signal came through, cleaner, clearer, and undeniable. Command to any surviving vessels of the Sol Vanguard, this is Fleet Marshal of the Terran Home Guard. We have received a life signature match near System 97 Vec human identifiable. We are en route, ETA 16 cycles. Hold tight. Soldier, we're coming. Ash leaned back, staring at the beacon like it was some kind of ghost. They were coming. Humanity knew. The next day, Ash told Mar the Elder sat quietly in the temple, hands steepled. And this is good news. Ash hesitated. I don't know. You said your people don't have friends. We don't. Then what will they do when they arrive? Ash looked down. If they think this place saved me, they'll want to reward you. That sounds generous. Ash's tone darkened. Not if they think you're vulnerable. The Terran Federation doesn't like unknowns. If they think this world is unclaimed, peaceful and unarmed, they might take it for your protection, for stability. That's how it starts. Marrow raised a brow. You fear your own kind. I respect them, Ash corrected, which is worse. I know what they're capable of. Me nodded, a quiet acceptance in his eyes. Then what will you do? Ash breathed deep. The question echoed in him louder than anything else. I'll talk to them. I'll explain. Make sure they leave you alone. And if they don't, Ash's jaw tightened. Then I'll remind them who taught me what mercy looks like. The days passed slowly after that. Ash kept training, kept teaching, but now his eyes stayed skyward longer. The villagers noticed the change. The air grew heavier. Rumors floated like pollen in the wind. Something was coming, and then it came. First, the sky cracked. Not literally, but to the villagers it may as well have. A flash of deep blue and gold split the atmosphere as three massive Terran dread ships descended, their shadows darkening the hills like a coming storm. The entire village came to a standstill. Ash stood at the edge of the cliff where he'd first watched the stars. His clothes were simple, but his posture was that of a man ready to carry a war on his back. The ships landed just outside the sacred fields. Massive hatches hissed open. Soldiers emerged, armored in polished gray and red, weapons holstered but visible. At their head stood a tall woman with a commanding gaze, hair braided tight and eyes cold with duty. Ash Levon, she called out across the field. Ash stepped forward, alive and standing. He replied. Fleet Marshal Leto approached her. Voice softened just a little. We thought we lost you. You almost did. Her eyes scanned the village, the people watching from behind carved wooden gates and hanging crystal wind chimes. This is where you crashed. They saved me, Ash said. I see. We scanned the place. No defenses, no governing body, no interstellar affiliation. They're not part of any alliance. They don't need to be. Leto nodded. Once, which makes them a concern. Ash stepped closer. No, it makes them a miracle. These people pulled a dying soldier from the wreckage of a burning ship. They didn't ask for payment. They didn't even know what species I was. They just helped. Out of instinct. Out of goodness. Leto narrowed her eyes. You've gone soft. Ash's tone never changed. Maybe, or maybe I remembered what humanity used to be before we started trading kindness for leverage. The silence between them was thick. You want us to leave them alone, Leto said. I want you to respect them. Protect them if anything, but don't touch this place, don't infect it. And if I say we take it. Ash's voice dropped low, steel in every syllable. Then I'll stand between you and every blade of grass on this planet. Leto stared at him for a long moment, and then a smile, tight but real. You always were trouble. Ash didn't smile back. They saved a single human, he said. If that's not worth protecting with everything we have, then we don't deserve the stars. Leto looked away towards the village, toward the people who had no idea what war meant. I'll mark the system as protected, she said finally, under Terran's shield. Protocols, observation only. Ash let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Good. Leto turned back to her ship. You coming back? Ash looked over his shoulder. The children were watching. One of them waved. He smiled. I'm already home. Peace returned, at least on the surface. After the Terran ships lifted off, their engines leaving behind nothing but scorched air and the scent of metal, the village exhaled for the first time in days. People stepped from their homes. Children returned to the fields. The skies were clear once again, but Ash knew that kind of silence was never permanent. Fleet Marshal Leto had kept her word for now. She filed the system as protected, but that protection came with eyes, satellites in orbit, observers hidden in clouds, silent probes skimming the atmosphere for data. Integrity. It wasn't violence, it wasn't colonization, but it wasn't peace either. It was surveillance with a smile. Ash tried not to let it show, but inside he knew what those probes meant. The Federation didn't leave anything unmonitored unless it had already decided it owned it. Still, the villagers didn't seem afraid. They didn't understand what it meant to be watched, and in their eyes Ash had done something incredible. He had stood up to the most powerful human fleet in the known galaxy and made them back down. That kind of thing didn't just spread, it turned into legend. They called him Starshield. At first he laughed it off, told them he wasn't anything special. But it didn't matter. To them he was a walking miracle, a symbol, and the more they believed it, the more Ash felt the weight of it pressing down on his shoulders. Me watched the change happen. He saw it in Ash's silence, in the way his eyes never fully rested anymore. At night when the others slept, Ash would sit outside the temple sharpening a blade he didn't need, not because of some threat, but because he couldn't let himself forget what waiting felt like. You fear something, Mio said one evening. Ash looked up, the knife resting against his knee. I fear silence. Why? Because the galaxy doesn't stay quiet unless it's watching. Marrow nodded slowly. Then you must teach us to hear the sounds that come before the storm. Ash stood and tucked the blade away. I hope you never have to hear them. 3 weeks passed. Then the merchant ships arrived, small ones at first, quiet, curious. Registered with neutral flags, they came from across the sector, some from human space, others from systems Ash didn't recognize. They brought trade goods, crystals, dyes, grain, simple things. At first the village welcomed them. People of Erol had never traded before, never sold their art, never Bartered for value, they gave freely, and received the same in return, but now with off-worlders arriving almost daily, that balance began to shift, and Ash felt it. He watched as merchants praised the villagers' craftsmanship, only to undercut them moments later. He watched traders ask leading questions about the unclaimed territory and the undefended lands beyond the hills. One man offered a local child a shiny weapon in exchange for a crystal flute. That flute had taken the child's father months to carve. Ash stepped in before the deal could finish. He grabbed the weapon, turned it over in his hands, and crushed it against a rock. "No trades today," he said, looking the merchant dead in the eye. "You try that again, I'll trade your ship for scrap." The merchant left that afternoon, but Ash knew it wouldn't be the last time someone tried. That night he visited Marrow at the temple. "We need rules," Ash said. "Rules?" Meow repeated, puzzled. "Laws, trade guidelines, border controls. We are not a governed people. You will be," Ash said, "whether you want to or not. If not by yourselves, then by someone else." Marrow looked at him, seeing something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "You're changing." Ash didn't answer. "You came to us with nothing," Marrow continued. "Now you build walls where there were none. I'm trying to protect you from who or from what you've become." That cut deeper than Ash expected. He stepped back, fists clenched. "I didn't choose this." "No," Marrow agreed, "but you must still decide what to do with it." Ash didn't sleep that night. He sat on the cliff again, staring out across the valley. The stars above no longer looked like hope. They looked like eyes watching, judging, measuring. His hands shook without him realizing it. Then he heard footsteps, not soft, not gentle, boots, not Errol boots. Ash turned instantly. There were 3 of them, human, armored but not military. Their suits were modified private hired guns. Each of them carried a weapon slung across their chest. One had a scar running from ear to chin. The other 2 stayed quiet, but their eyes said enough. Ash stepped forward. "You're not welcome here." The lead mercenary grinned. "Didn't see any signs. You saw the satellite. You know this place is protected." "We're not Federation," the man said, tapping his own chest. "We're freelance, just doing a job." "What job?" "Survey, infrastructure scan, land value reports." Ash narrowed his eyes. "You're here to map the planet." The man smiled wider. "You catch on quick." I said, "This place is protected." And I said, "We're freelance." The tension cracked. Ash moved faster than any of them expected. He slammed into the lead man, drove him back into a tree, then spun and knocked the weapon from the second one's hands. The third tried to draw, but Ash dropped low, swept his legs, and pressed a blade to the merc's throat. All 3 groaned on the ground. Ash didn't yell. His voice was steady. "You tell your employers, next time they won't walk away." The lead merc spat blood, muttered something, and the 3 of them limped back to their ship. Ash didn't go back to the temple. He knew what Marrow would say. Instead, he went to the field he'd cleared months ago, stood in the dark, and looked at the stars. He had fought for peace before on planets that didn't care for leaders who never remembered his name. But this time, this place, it mattered. Not because he owed it, but because it had given him something without asking. A second chance. Now others wanted to take that away. Ash made a decision. Next day he gathered the village council, not just Marrow, but the eldest Artists, the harvest leaders, the stone shapers, the young scouts who patrolled the forests. I need your permission, he said, to build a warning they didn't understand. At first, Ash explained slowly, you don't need weapons, but you need the galaxy to believe you. Have them, you need eyes in orbit, a field that scrambles, scans, shields. Around your temple, I'll do it all, but only if you allow me. One of the younger leaders, a woman with hair like folded fire, asked him, why would anyone want to hurt us? Ash looked at her. Because you're good. And good things don't survive out there unless they're protected. They voted by sunset, unanimous. Ash got to work. Within days, strange devices rose. Outside the village, stealth pylons, cloaking beacons, shield emitters, disguised as art sculptures. To the untrained eye, they looked like decorations. But to anyone watching, they said something else entirely. This world is not yours. He sent a message to Fleet Marshal Leto, short, precise, unauthorized. Mercs showed up, you knew they would. You said this place was protected, act like it. She replied 2 hours later, they're not from us, but they won't be back. Consider it a favor. Ash stared at the message long after it faded. He didn't believe in favors, not from the Federation, not anymore. That night, as the lights dimmed and the wind turned colder, a child found Ash sitting near the field. She curled up beside him, her tiny hand gripping his. Are we safe now? She asked. Ash didn't answer right away. He looked at the stars, then down at her face. He thought about Leto, the probes, the traitors, the mercs, the galaxy that never stopped reaching for what it didn't own. Then softly he said, we will be. But even as he said it, Ash knew something was coming, something bigger than probes or pirates, because the galaxy doesn't like unfinished stories. And Ash's story had just begun again. Ash woke before sunrise. The fields were still dark, blanketed in a soft silver mist that curled around the base of the pylons he had installed. To the untrained eye, it looked peaceful, like the world was still asleep, but Ash had spent enough years in war to know that peace this deep never lasted. He stood in the center of the training field, barefoot, shirtless, blade in hand. The air was cold and the dirt beneath him was damp, but it grounded him, kept his thoughts from spiraling into the weight of all he was now responsible for. He moved in silence. Slow practice forms passed down from generations of Terran soldiers before him. His body, still marked with burns and scars, moved like it remembered death too well. Every motion was precise, every breath was measured. Figure approached slowly from behind. It was Hari, one of the teenage scouts who'd started training with him months ago. The boy carried a small basket of fruit and fresh water. His eyes were wide with the kind of respect Ash had tried hard not to earn. I brought breakfast, Hari said quietly. Ash lowered his blade and turned. Thanks, you always train alone. Old habit. Hari hesitated, then stepped forward. People are starting to get scared. Not of you, of everything. The ships, the strangers, the way you look at the sky now. Ash nodded slowly. They should be, but we were fine before, Gari added. Nobody ever bothered us, not until after the Federation came. Ash crouched beside the boy, eyes steady. They came because of me, but they'll come again because of what you are. Hari frowned. What are we? Ash looked across the valley toward the temple, the markets, the peaceful lives untouched by war. Rare, he said. By late afternoon, 2 more merchant ships appeared in the sky. This time, Ash didn't greet them alone. He brought 4 of his best trainees, all dressed in neutral robes but carrying concealed stun spears he had taught them to use. The ships landed outside the boundary field. Ash waited by the entry point where the cloaked shield shimmered faintly against the grass. 2 traders disembarked. Both were human, clean suits, polished smiles, but their posture was all wrong, too alert, eyes scanning every structure. Ash stepped forward. This is private land. One of the traders raised his hands. Were diplomats here to offer trade agreements. Federation approved. Ash narrowed his eyes. Let me guess, you want rights to Eral's minerals, maybe the crystal deposits near the riverbed. Or maybe you're here for the energy readings your probes keep flagging. The taller trader smirked. You've done well, Ash. Turned this place into something valuable. That's rare. You know, most crash survivors don't even last a week. Ash stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're standing on sacred ground. You're speaking to someone who's buried good people just for asking the wrong questions. The trader's smile cracked just slightly. You threatening us? No, Ash said. I'm promising you a very short stay. The second trader tapped his comm link. Ash didn't blink. Within seconds, 2 automated drones flew overhead. Ash raised his hand. From the field pylons, a pulse fired upward, silent, invisible. The drones dropped out of the sky like rocks crashing into the grass behind them. The traders stared. Ash smiled coldly. You'll want to file that in your report. They left within the hour. That evening, Ash met with the village council. The tone was different now. Tense, divided. Some of the elders were worried, not about Ash's defenses, but about what they were inviting by resisting. If we keep turning ships away, one of them said, won't they see us as hostile? We're not hostile, Ash replied. We're sovereign. There's a difference, but we're not fighters. Another elder said, we don't want war. And I'm not asking you to fight, Ash said calmly. I'm asking you to prepare. Because pretending the galaxy won't notice you, that's a fantasy. But we've always lived in peace because no one noticed you, Ash cut in. That changed the second you saved me. Room went silent. He regretted the tone but not the words. I know you didn't ask for this, he added softer now, but we don't get to choose how the galaxy reacts to kindness. Only how we protect it. Marrow, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. What happens, he asked quietly, when the ones coming don't leave? Ash looked at him for a long moment. Then we make them. 2 days later, a signal reached Eral's orbit. It wasn't a ship this time. It was a broadcast. Open channel, public. It was a corporate logo, Loxon Dynamics Exploration Division. The message was smooth, diplomatic, a voice dripping with practiced charm. The fields were still dark, blanketed in a soft silver mist that curled around the base of the pylons he had installed. To the untrained eye it looked peaceful, like the world was still asleep, but Ash had spent enough years in war to know that peace this deep never lasted. He stood in the center of the training field, barefoot, shirtless, blade in hand. The air was cold and the dirt beneath him was damp, but it grounded him, kept his thoughts from spiraling into the weight of all he was now responsible for. He moved in silence. Slow practice forms passed down from Generations of Terran soldiers before him, his body still marked with burns and scars, moved like it remembered death too well. Every motion was precise, every breath was measured. Figure approached slowly from behind. It was Hari, one of the teenage scouts, who'd started training with him months ago. The boy carried a small basket of fruit and fresh water. His eyes were wide with the kind of respect Ash had tried hard not to earn. I brought breakfast, Hari said quietly. Ash lowered his blade and turned. Thanks, you always train alone, old habit. Hari hesitated, then stepped forward. People are starting to get scared. Not of you, of everything, the ships, the strangers, the way you look at the sky now. Ash nodded slowly. They should be, but we were fine before, Gari added. Nobody ever bothered us, not until after the Federation came. Ash crouched beside the boy, eyes steady. They came because of me, but they'll come again because of what you are. Hari frowned. What are we? Ash looked across the valley toward the temple, the markets, the peaceful lives, untouched by war. Rare, he said. By late afternoon, 2 more merchant ships appeared in the sky. This time, Ash didn't greet them alone. He brought 4 of his best trainees, all dressed in neutral robes but carrying concealed stun spears he had taught them to use. The ships landed outside the boundary field. Ash waited by the entry point where the cloaked shield shimmered faintly against the grass. 2 traders disembarked. Both were human, clean suits, polished smiles, but their posture was all wrong, too alert, eyes scanning every structure. Ash stepped forward. This is private land. One of the traders raised his hands. Were diplomats here to offer trade agreements. Federation approved. Ash narrowed his eyes. Let me guess, you want rights to Aral's minerals, maybe the crystal deposits near the riverbed, or maybe you're here for the energy readings your probes keep flagging. The taller trader smirked. You've done well, Ash. Turn this place into something valuable. That's rare. You know, most crash survivors don't even last a week. Ash stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're standing on sacred ground. You're speaking to someone who's buried good people just for asking the wrong questions. The trader's smile cracked just slightly. You threatening us? No, Ash said. I'm promising you a very short stay. The second trader tapped his comm link. Ash didn't blink. Within seconds, 2 automated drones flew overhead. Ash raised his hand. From the field pylons, a pulse fired upward, silent, invisible. The drones dropped out of the sky like rocks crashing into the grass behind them. The trader stared. Ash smiled coldly. You'll want to file that in your report. They left within the hour. That evening, Ash met with the village council. The tone was different now. Tense, divided. Some of the elders were worried not about Ash's defenses, but about what they were inviting by resisting. If we keep turning ships away, one of them said, won't they see us as hostile? We're not hostile, Ash replied. We're sovereign. There's a difference, but we're not fighters. Another elder said, we don't want war. And I'm not asking you to fight, Ash said calmly. I'm asking you to prepare. Because pretending the galaxy won't notice you, that's a fantasy. But we've always lived in peace, because no one noticed you. Ash cut in. That changed the second you saved me. The room went silent. He regretted the tone, but not the words. I know you didn't ask for this, he added softer now, but we don't get to Choose how the galaxy reacts to kindness. Only how we protect it. Mio, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. What happens, he asked quietly, when the ones coming don't leave? Ash looked at him for a long moment. Then we make them. 2 days later, a signal reached Errol's orbit. It wasn't a ship this time. It was a broadcast. Open channel, public. It was a corporate logo, Loxon Dynamics Exploration Division. The message was smooth, diplomatic, a voice dripping with practice charm. From the crate he threw a flash canister toward the ridge. It exploded in a wave of white light and concussive sound. The sniper screamed, dropping the rifle. Ash ran. He moved like a memory of war. Fast, brutal, efficient, years of battlefield instinct guiding his hands. His legs burned, his lungs stung, but none of it mattered. This wasn't just defense anymore. This was war in the village. The people stood behind the golden shield. Children clung to their mothers. The elders held hands. Mia stood still in the center, his face unreadable. One of the younger women, Illa, stepped beside him. Should we run? Marrow shook his head. This is our home. But if he fails, he won't. How can you? No. Marrow looked out toward the chaos. The smoke, the flashes of light, the shape of a man fighting alone against a private army. Because we saved him once, Marrow said softly, and now he's saving us all. Ash reached the ridge. The sniper was still half blinded, crawling toward his sidearm. Ash kicked it away, pressed his boot to the man's back, and knelt. This is mercy, he said quietly, then struck the back of the man's neck, knocking him out cold. Back at the Loxon camp, the commander knew things had spiraled beyond her control. This was supposed to be clean, she muttered. Her comm buzzed. A voice crackled through. This is Director Vane. Report. She hesitated. Engaged with local resistance. Resistance? You mean one man? Not anymore. She looked up and froze because across the horizon more shapes were moving. Villagers, hundreds of them. They weren't carrying guns. They weren't soldiers, but they moved with purpose. Not angry, but unyielding. Calm, silent together, a line of artists, farmers, children, elders, all walking across the field behind the shimmering shield, standing with Ash. Commander Vane asked again. She didn't respond because at that moment something clicked in her mind. Something bigger than territory, bigger than protocol. This wasn't a resource. This wasn't salvage. This was civilization. Ash walked into view again, face bloodied, cloak burned, eyes blazing with that cold human fire that had terrified galaxies for centuries. He stopped in front of her. This is your last chance. She looked at him, then at the people behind him, then at the cracked sky above, and for the first time she looked uncertain. I have orders, and I have nothing left to lose. She stared at him, then at the villagers again, then back at him, and she said quietly, "You're not a soldier anymore." Ash nodded once. "No, I'm worse." She left. No grand speech, no surrender. She just turned to her comm, gave a quiet retreat order, and within an hour the ships were gone, dragging their broken towers and shattered pride behind them. That night the village was silent, not afraid, just stunned. Ash sat near the training field, his blade beside him, his shirt soaked with sweat and blood. His hands were trembling now, not from fear but from the weight of what he'd done, what he'd become. Hari approached again, carrying another basket. You were right, the boy said softly. The galaxy noticed us. Ash didn't look up. Yeah, will they come back? Yes, then. What do we do? Ash closed his eyes. We stay ready. We stay smart. We don't forget who we are. Hari sat beside him, staring up at the stars. I think we're strong now, the boy said. Not because we can fight, but because we have something worth fighting for. Ash smiled faintly. Yeah, he said, that's exactly it. But far above them, in the dark void of space, something else was happening. The signal from Loxon's failed mission had spread, and while some corporations would now back off, others would come. Not for minerals, not for profit, but for the question that now haunted every corner of the Terran networks. Who are these people that made a soldier fight like that? And worse, what if there's more of them? News of the Loxon retreat spread faster than light. It wasn't broadcast through official channels, not at first. There were no headlines, no formal press releases, just whispers, testimonies, grainy footage smuggled out by one of the mercenaries, uploaded to the edge of the darknet, a video barely 20 seconds long, a single human standing between armed soldiers and a line of villagers, holding nothing but hope. No guns, no tanks, no backup fleets behind him, just one man. And the implication behind the video was louder than any weapon. They saved one of us and he would have burned the stars to protect them. The clip went viral, first in the outer colonies where rebellion was already thick in the air, then in the corporate corridors of Terra where investors met in darkened rooms and whispered about unstable sectors and human loyalty anomalies. Then came the questions. Who are the people of Aral? How did they stop a mercenary force with no weapons? Is this what human allegiance looks like when it's given freely? And finally, what else would humanity do for them? On Aral, Ash wasn't watching the news. He was repairing shields. The last attack had shorted out half of the perimeter beacons, and one of the deflection crystals near the south ridge had fractured during the drone interference. The village still looked calm on the surface, but the tech was bleeding quietly beneath it. He was tightening a cooling conduit when I approached. She didn't say anything at first, just watched him work. You don't rest, she finally said. Ash grunted. No time for it, you stopped an invasion. He didn't look up. I delayed one. Crouched beside him, her hands were softer than his but steady. The children have started carving blades out of wood, she said. They say they want to fight like you. Ash paused. That hit harder than it should have. I'm not a hero, he muttered. They think you are. I'm not what this place needs. She tilted her head. Then why did you stay? He looked at her finally. His eyes were tired, not the tiredness of the body but the soul. Because the moment I left, they'd come back. That night the sky shifted, not visibly, not to the villagers, but Ash felt it. Something moved in orbit. Something big. He left the village and climbed to the communication tower he'd built into the northern cliffs. Interface blinked softly, its crystal array linked to deep sky sensors. A new ping, unregistered. Large, cloaked. Ash narrowed his eyes. He knew the shape, the power signature, the quiet hum of a ship designed not to be seen. Not Federation, not corporate, worse. Independent. Back at the temple, Mara was finishing a ceremonial script when Ash walked in. They're watching us again, Ash said. Someone new. Mio didn't flinch. Then they will see us as we are. No, Ash said firmly, they'll see what they want to take. He sat across from the old man. There's a storm coming. There always is. This one's different. Marrow said, his brush down. You speak like someone who believes peace is a temporary gift. Ash looked at him. It is not here. Ash leaned forward. Then why are they still coming? Marrow folded his hands. Because the galaxy is broken. But we are not. 3 days later, the first envoys arrived. They weren't soldiers. They were worse, diplomats, slick uniformed, silver insignias from old systems, no longer part of the Federation, wealthy families, planet states, even a couple of rogue Earthlings claiming to be humanity's conscience. They came with gifts, spices, tech, medicine, alliances, wrapped in pleasantries. Ash stood behind Marrow during every meeting. He said nothing, but his presence filled the room like a shadow. One by one, they made their offers. Trade routes, cultural exchanges, strategic partnerships. Mio listened, then politely declined. You're refusing everything, one ambassador asked in disbelief. We are not against connection, Mio replied. We are against dependency. This world doesn't belong to the galaxy. Every world belongs to the galaxy. Another snapped. You just haven't chosen a flag yet. Mio smiled faintly. Then perhaps we are not a world you understand. Ash said nothing, but he saw it. The way the envoys. I twitched. The way hands clenched behind backs. They weren't going to walk away like Loxon had. Not this time. That night, Ash met with the younger council members, the ones he'd trained, the ones who had once been too afraid to speak. He showed them maps, pulse scans, encrypted messages. They're going to come again, he said. Not with armies, with whispers, with bribes, with poisons in your food and lies in your skies. Illa looked pale. Then we keep saying no, no won't be enough, Ash replied. They'll send someone smarter, someone who understands the weight of stories. Hari frowned. What stories? Ash looked at him. Mine. He was right, because 3 days later, a ship landed just outside the village. Unannounced, no weapons, no soldiers. Just a single person, human. Middle-aged, calm face, no uniform, no visible threat. Ash met him at the gate. You're trespassing. I came to talk. Ash didn't move, so talk. The man smiled. I know who you are, Ash. Not interested. I know what happened on Hark 7. That made Ash pause. The man continued, his tone soft. You were part of the Terran Reclamation Force, 6th Wave. You stayed behind during the extraction to pull civilians from a burning medical dome. Ash's eyes darkened. That mission was classified. The man stepped closer. You lost 23 people that day, carried aid on your back through a firestorm. They gave you a medal. You never claimed it. Ash's hands clenched. Who are you? The man extended a data chip. Someone who wants to help you tell your story. Ash took the chip but didn't look at it. We don't need stories. You do, the man said, because the galaxy is watching now. And they're scared, not of this village, but of what it represents. If they understand you, if they see why you stayed, they might back off. Ash narrowed his eyes. Or they might turn Errol into a museum, ying things into comms he never thought anyone had recorded. And behind it all, narration. A voice calm and deep. He was left behind, a broken man on a forgotten world, but the people of Errol didn't ask what he had done. They asked who he was, and in doing so they gave him something: no medal, no fleet, no command, had ever offered belonging. Ash sat still for a long time, then he reached for the comm panel. The next day, a signal was transmitted from Errol, a message, not a warning, not a threat, a story. It spread like fire. Through the network, the human who was saved, the people who asked nothing in return, the world that stood against mercenaries without drawing a single weapon. It wasn't propaganda, it was truth. But truth, when wrapped in defiance, becomes dangerous. Back on Terra Nova, a senator stared at the report and muttered, "This is worse than a rebellion. This is inspiration." And someone else in a darker room said, "We need to erase it." Quietly they came at night, not with guns, not with fleets, but with silence. The kind of silence that arrives only when everything looks normal, stars still shining, wind still blowing. Nothing broken, nothing burning. That was the genius of it. No ships in orbit, no warnings, no broadcasts, just a cold, deliberate absence of noise. Ash felt it first. He always did. He was standing on the south ridge, running diagnostics on the shield beacons, when his hand froze. Mid-motion, a ripple passed through his chest, not sound, not movement. Something deeper, like a pressure in the air. He tapped the comm on his wrist. Central, scan the upper stratosphere. No response. He tried again. "Jerry, come in. Elamaro, anyone?" Still silence. He dropped his tools and ran back. In the village, everything looked fine. Children laughed under starlight. Healers passed through the market carrying baskets of dried herbs and fruit, but Ash moved through the crowd like a soldier in a war zone. Too quiet, too clean. He went straight to the temple and found Marrow sitting on the floor, deep in meditation. "Why didn't you answer the comm?" Ash demanded. Marrow opened his eyes slowly. "Because it didn't ring." Ash froze. That meant it wasn't broken. It was blocked. He grabbed the temple's uplink module and plugged in manually. The interface lit up, then blinked red. Connection denied. Uplink jammed. Ash's jaw tightened. "They're here," he said. "They're already here." This wasn't a fleet. This was a blackout team, the kind the Federation used to send when they didn't want resistance, when they didn't want martyrs, when they just wanted a story to disappear. The first disappearance was a child. Lena, 7 years old, always drawing birds on stones. She'd been playing near the western stream with her older brother. He looked away for a moment, just one moment. When he turned back, she was gone. No scream, no sound, just a small sketchbook dropped beside a mossy log. Ash got the report 15 minutes later. He knew exactly what it meant. They moved quickly after that. Whispers of missing villagers, a healer's hut burned in the forest, no flames, just ashes. A communication beacon found dismantled. Every wire inside melted without a sound. Ash stood in front of the village that night, eyes scanning the hills. This wasn't war, this was cleansing. "They're not coming to fight," he told the young council. "They're coming to erase one by one." Quietly, Elaz's face went pale. "Why?" "Because we told the truth," Ash said. "Because hope spreads and the people in charge don't want a galaxy asking questions." He gathered the trainees, all of them. 27 villagers, young, old, male, female. Anyone who had been learning under him. Since the day he first lifted a training spear, he stood before them in the old field, the moonlight cutting long shadows between them. "I didn't want to turn this place into an army," he said. "But this isn't a war we asked for." It's a lie they're trying to bury. He held up Lena's sketchbook. They took a child. That's who we're dealing with. His voice broke slightly, not from fear, from fury. They think this place is soft, that we won't fight unless we're hit loud and hard, but what they don't understand, what they never will, is that you taught me more about strength than any battlefield ever did. He looked across. The faces, calm, steady, not angry, but ready. So we don't wait, he said. We hunt. Ash had trained them well, not to kill, to resist, to track, to protect. He split them into cells, small, agile groups. They moved into the woods with cloaks and signal jammers, each one carrying a pulse sensor rig built from scrap and salvage tech. The enemy was good, but they weren't invisible. Ash knew how these blackout teams worked. He used to be one. They dropped in under cloaks, targeted communications first, cut power to quiet zones, then removed targets of influence one by one until the story disappeared like it had never existed. He would not let Errol become a myth. Carr's team found the first trace, a hidden relay under the west cliffs, disguised as moss but humming with data. Ash led the strike himself. No guns, just silence. They took down the two-man surveillance crew with tranquilizer darts, found a small data bank already uploading footage back to some off-grid military server. Ash wiped it all, then left a message on the uplink. You want to erase a story, you'll have to kill the ending first. Good luck. Enemy escalated. By the next morning, 5 more villagers were gone. No bodies, no blood, just missing. Ash stood in the middle of the square, eyes wild with rage. This isn't stealth anymore, he said. They're speeding up. Illa stepped forward. Why? Because we scared them. Then shouldn't they stop? Ash looked down. No, scared people don't stop. They destroy faster. That night, Ash returned to the place where his ship had first crashed all those months ago. The crater was still there, overgrown now, soft grass reclaiming the burn, but the memory was sharp. He knelt there alone, no weapons, no comm, just him, and said quietly, "Please, if there's anyone out there listening, they're taking my people, the ones who saved me, the ones you left behind. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what you ask. Just don't let them vanish." The wind didn't answer, but something else did, a flash high above. Not military, civilian, but fast. Ash stood slowly, eyes narrowing. That wasn't Federation. It was. He tapped his comm, check for unregistered warp signatures, civilian grade. A pause. Cherry's voice came through. "We just got one. It's not cloaked, it's broadcasting." Ash stiffened. Broadcasting what? There was a pause, then Jerry whispered, "Story." The galaxy had started watching again, and this time it wasn't through spies, it was through citizens. Outsiders, rogue stations, colonists, exiles, all passing the story along. Encrypted nets, whispering about the world that fought back, not with armies, but with honor. People had started showing up, not warriors, not soldiers, just witnesses. They didn't land, they didn't interfere, they hovered in orbit, watching, recording, making sure Errol didn't disappear in the dark. Ash stood in the middle of the field. The next morning he looked up at the sky. Small ships, dozens of them now, unarmed. Silent, civilian, but each one a shield. Each one a promise that the eraser would not go unnoticed. Down below, Mira walked to him slowly. "They came," Ash nodded. "Not to fight, no." Mar said, "To remember." Ash looked at Him voice quiet, it might not be. Enough, it already is, Marrow said. Because now if we vanish, they'll know. We existed. The blackout team pulled out that night. No shots, no speeches, just silence. Gone. Because their mission had failed, you can only erase a story when no one is watching. And now the whole galaxy was watching. A year passed, not all at once, but like wind slipping through the fingers, quiet. Days, long nights, no more battles, no more disappearances, just life. Aral returned to its rhythm, children played in the fields again, artists painted in the sun, the wind returned to its song, and the crystals in the temple sang when the moon was high. But nothing was the same, not really. Because now the rest of the galaxy knew. Aral existed, and more importantly, they remembered the quiet watchers in orbit didn't leave, if anything more came, not soldiers, not saviors, just people, ordinary citizens who wanted to witness a place that had said no to power, no to fear, and yes to something forgotten. Humanity at its best. Ash didn't leave either, he could have. After the blackout teams pulled out, the Federation itself sent a message. It was clean, professional, and carefully worded. You are under informal observation. Your actions are being reviewed. Any continued destabilizing influence on neutral systems will result in formal inquiry. He read it once, then deleted it because Aral didn't belong to the Federation. It didn't belong to Lox and Dynamics or Terran Command or any of the Empire corporate machines that rolled across the stars pretending they were building civilizations. It belonged to the people who carried water, planted crystals, and saved a man who fell from the sky. And Ash, he'd finally found the only place where he didn't need a rank to be useful. He spent his days repairing the shield cores and planting food near the river. He taught the children more about survival, not just how to fight, but how to spot lies, how to trust instinct, how to protect truth even when it's fragile. They called him teacher now, not Starshield, not soldier, just Ash. Simple. Human. One day Marrow called for him. The elder was older now, slower. His hands trembled sometimes when he poured tea, but his eyes still held fire. Ash knelt beside him in the temple garden. I had a vision, Marrow said softly. Ash smiled. You dream every night. That's not special. This one was different. Ash tilted his head. Tell me. Marrow looked up at the sky, then back at him. You were leaving. Ash blinked. I'm not, I know. But in the vision you were old, tired. And the people, our people, stood with you at the edge of the field. They wore armor made of light, but they didn't carry weapons. They carried your words. Ash swallowed. Meow smiled. They had learned not how to fight, but how to stand. He closed his eyes for a moment. Everything you feared, everything you tried to stop, it didn't come. Ash sat with him in silence for a long while. Then he said, what does it mean? Mio chuckled. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. Dreams are stories waiting to happen. Few weeks later, the first monument appeared. Ash hadn't asked for it. No one in the village had built it. It came from orbit. A ship landed in the far eastern plain near the place where the Lox and Mercs had once tried to breach the field. The pilot was a woman, not Federation, not even military, just a historian. She carried a large stone tablet engraved in 3 languages: Common, Galactic, Old Terran, and Aurelian glyph. At the top were 7 words. They saved one, humanity saved the rest. Villagers watched as she placed it near the cliff, then left without asking for anything. No interview, no broadcast. Just respect. Ash stood beside it that night, hands in his pockets, unsure whether to laugh or cry. I didn't save anyone, he whispered, but the stars didn't argue, and the wind didn't disagree. Time passed. The orbital watchers turned into settlers, not invaders. These were the quiet kind, people who'd lost homes in wars or been crushed by systems that didn't care. Artists, healers, farmers. They asked nothing. Errol allowed them in slowly, not with force, with invitation. Marrow said yes. Ash didn't object, because by then Errol wasn't just a village, it was a message, and one day that message reached Earth, not through the news, not through politicians, but through a child, a girl born on Errol of no family name, sent a drawing to Earth's digital archives, a drawing of a man with tired eyes standing in front of 1,000 stars, holding the hand of a little girl. She called it He Stayed. It went viral in a week, and just like that, Errol wasn't just a story, it was a symbol of what could have been, of what still could be. Ash didn't speak at the village gatherings anymore, not because he had nothing to say, but because they did. She became a scout leader, a help design the new learning hall. The temple now taught history, not just spirituality, and at the center of that history, not a statue, not a shrine, but a garden grown where Ash had once landed. Every year they planted one seed for each life that had been taken before the blackout failed. No names, just green, because Errol remembered the living by making more life. One evening, as the sun turned the sky soft gold, Ash sat by the garden with a small group of children. One of them, curious and sharp-tongued, asked, "Is it true you could have destroyed their ships?" Ash shrugged. "Maybe." "Why didn't you?" He thought for a moment, then said, "Because fear makes more enemies. But love makes more fighters." Children didn't fully understand, but they nodded anyway, and years later they would. Ash got older, his shoulders stiffened, his scars faded into softer lines. His eyes, though still sharp, began to carry peace instead of fire. But he never left, because some wars don't end with peace treaties, they end with belonging. He died under a violet moon quietly. No pain, no grand farewell, just a breath that faded and a heart that slowed in a world that stayed behind, still standing. Marrow had passed the year before. Allah held Ash's hand in the end, and when they buried him, they didn't use stone. They planted a tree, tall, quiet, strong, and from its bark someone carved, "He was one of us." Years later, perhaps decades, the Federation sent another scout to Errol. He arrived alone, walked the fields, spoke to the people, touched the monument, then left. His report, quietly filed away, said, "No threats, no weapons, no reason to intervene, but the people speak his name like a prayer, the kind of story that makes martyrs, the kind of place you leave alone." And for once they did, because Errol wasn't a battlefield. It was a reminder that sometimes saving just one person can awaken the soul of a species, and when that species remembers what it's capable of, they don't come to conquer, they come to protect.